What would you say are the key elements in terms of communication that someone should be working on to improve their communications?
Don't overthink every little thing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because when I first started out, I felt like I had to be perfect at everything, know everything, come across as this super, experienced professional. When actually it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to admit that actually you're new in business, you don't know everything.
How come this switch? Like after your degree, did you do any job in your field in terms of art, or did you straight go into business?
I've always been pretty good at sales because from a young age I did car boot sales and markets with my mum. I didn't feel passionate enough at the time to actually leave my hometown to move to London to make a career in that industry.
What I personally believe is the fact that you are at a job and you get the opportunity to do a few extra bits that actually add up to your own skills,
Yeah.
they should be done, and that opportunity should be taken,
Yeah.
rather than thinking, oh yeah, imagine if I do two extra things, I'll get paid the same.
I do the marketing myself. I do the hands-on stuff from day to day with myself of the business, and I obviously want to be present in the business. And I am the face of RSVIP.
Exactly.
So when people think of my brand, they think of me.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Just Hamza here, and I'm back with another podcast. In this podcast, I had the honor to have Fiona with myself as a guest, and I will let Fiona do her introductions. So Fiona, if you just want to tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a communication coach. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Thank you.
And I am a trainer and facilitator in strategic B2B networking. So in other words, I organise networking events and train people how to network at them.
Yeah, I'm aware of your networking event, RSVP, I
That's
believe.
the one, yes.
And it's
yeah.
quite well known in the whole Nottingham and the whole East Midland, I would say.
Yes.
So let's start with your career. I want to know a bit more about yourself, and then I do want to know a lot more about this networking events and the communications itself. So starting with your career, like where did you do your education? How did it start?
So actually, my background's art, so I was always
Okay.
very creative as a child, and I always knew that I'd end up probably studying art at some point and going into that field. And so I studied art and design. I studied 3D design at college straight after school. And then I went on to do a degree at Nottingham Trent University in theatre design. That was kind of the module in the area at college that I excelled at, really, and that was where I was encouraged to kind of spend most of my time, and I enjoyed it. So theatre design was where it was
Theatre
at,
design.
really. So that was
How-
actually what my degree is in.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So you started in art and you switched from art to communication coach.
Yeah.
How come this switch? Like after your degree, did you do any job in your field in terms of art, or did you straight go into business?
Good question. So after I graduated actually in theatre design, I considered going to work in the industry of theatre, but it meant moving to London from Nottingham, where I'd always lived. I had my family here, I had my life here really in Nottingham. I've always loved where I lived, and actually I didn't feel passionate enough at the time to actually leave my hometown to move to London to make a career in that industry. So I ended up staying here for a while and trying to figure it out. So I went into sales for a while, just as a temporary job for a couple of years for a big blue chip corporate company, which was really turned out to be really great experience in the end. And then after that, I went to work in the world of advertising for a while for a glossy lifestyle magazine. So it was quite a nice jump from sales to advertising, kind of connected quite nicely. Learned a lot from that. Had my first experience as being an editorial contributor, so I had my first taste at writing and seeing my work being published in print, which was quite exciting. And I got a bit of a buzz from that, and a bit of a kind of I got addicted to the feeling of wanting to write more, I think, hence why I do that now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was there for about a year, and then I decided that it was time for me to take the leap into self-employment. I was in my early 20s at the time. I've always been very entrepreneurial from a young age. And I always knew that I'd end up doing something slightly creative and also something for myself. So that's when RSVIP came about in 2008. And the rest is history, really. So you asked me about the kind of the transition between studying theatre design and where I am now, in being a communication coach. There was actually a step in between that, which was the transitional period of studying theatre and running events, because it is essentially transferable skills.
Fair enough.
So everything that I learned within my degree really was kind of the same kind of things that I was applying with designing events. You know, I was still able to be creative. You could walk into a room, see a blank space and kind of visualize what it could look like at the end once you'd put your magic touch on it with your event. It's very experiential, like theatre is, you know, creating an experience for people. It's very positive, you know, it's enjoyable. So yeah, I think for me it was very much transferable skills and learning some of the things that I'd learned within my degree to implementing into what I do now, which is designing events. Yeah.
Going back to your career, so the first job you had was in sales. How come sales?
Yeah.
You know what? That's literally one of my favorite
Oh,
topics,
okay,
and that's
yeah.
one of my favorite fields as well.
Yeah.
And I believe sales teaches you a lot. And you tell me a bit about your experience in sales. What was it that you were doing
Absolutely.
exactly, and how was it?
So I worked in insurance, actually, selling insurance. So it was a contact call centre type of environment. It was great for the age that I was at. I was earning quite a high income for my age at that time. It was shift work, so I didn't care because I was young and I had loads of energy. Made loads of friends. It was really social. I actually met my now husband there as well, so it was
Okay.
well worth it. If
Definitely.
only just for that. And you know, you're very right. You learn a lot of soft skills, a lot of social skills doing that type of job. I've always been pretty good at sales because from a young age I did car boot sales and markets with my mum. I was brought up in a single parent family. My mum had to do a lot of that type of thing to make ends meet, subsidise her own income. She worked full time as well. And so I learnt the art of negotiation from a very young age, of bartering at car boot sales and selling junk that we didn't want. That, you know, what's one man's junk is another man's treasure, as they say. And I remember getting a real kind of thrill from doing that from a very young age. From about 10 I was doing that. And so yeah, that was kind of where it all started for me. So I always knew I'd be
You know, a
pretty good
question
at
that a lot
sales.
of people have, especially when people get into sales, is either you're made for it or you're not made for it. Is that a
Yeah.
thing, or is it something that you actually can pick up on the way?
No, I think the first thing is what you've said is correct, actually. I think you can learn sales skills, certainly, but I think it's ingrained into certain people. And I think it comes from learned behaviour and lifestyle as well. I
Yeah.
think, you know, for me, it was actually a means to an end for my mum. Whereas, you know, and you kind of, it's a bit of the hustle, isn't it? Sometimes people have to do it. I suppose that was kind of like that in my childhood a little bit. But I think also you kind of have that salesy streak in you naturally, that entrepreneurial streak. I know people that really struggle with negotiation and they wouldn't dream of bartering for
Exactly.
anything. They pay the asking price every time. It frustrates me because that's not in me at all. You know, I love a bargain. And I think, you know, in every aspect of my life, if I can get a good deal, then, you know, I go home happy.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Even in sales, personally, even myself, you know, the day that I have a couple of sales in, it's just a feeling that you can't. Well, it's definitely happy, but there's a lot more that goes behind that feeling that is hard to explain into the words. It's just that is this a self satisfaction of being able to have sold something that you essentially, in your case, you didn't really want, and you actually managed to sell it to somebody else. That's quite cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
So after the sales, what was your next job?
Okay, so after that, I jumped over to advertising. For me, I kind of got what I wanted in the couple of years at the insurance company, at in the corporate world, and I felt that I wanted to kind of hone in on selling something that was a bit more me. And so the magazine world, a bit more glamorous, I felt like that was kind of the way that I was going. It opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of experience. It made me be able to not only make some good contacts but also experience events. So I was going to quite a lot of events at that time, and I was able to network, even though at the time I wasn't aware of the fact that I was networking. You know, we were still kind of, you're talking the early 2000s when networking wasn't big like it is now. So I was going to launches of new places and that kind of thing. I was meeting, you know, celebrities, and it was great. And I thought I could have a bit of this, but I want this for myself, because all the money I was earning when I was doing that job was obviously going in someone else's pocket, and in my mind that wasn't fair. So I thought, right, I need to do this for myself, but I didn't want to obviously steal their idea or, you know, emulate what someone else was doing. I wanted to create something of my own. And so that's where RSVIP came about eventually.
Interesting. Magazine. So how was it? How was it back in the 2000s? Like in terms of marketing, what was it? What it was most likely traditional marketing. So what was it? You guys were selling certain pages of magazines to certain businesses, or?
Yes, exactly that. So it was selling advertising space for a glossy lifestyle magazine. It was a local regional magazine, very well known at the time. There was a lot of people that, you know, would have liked to have worked for that company just because of the perks that it brought and that kind of thing. It was a small business that was, it wasn't family run, but it was run by 3 people. So we were a fairly small team with a few of us that, you know, sold. My job title essentially was sales representative. So I was a sales and field rep. So I'd make the revenue for the company through selling advertising space. But as I said before, I also got a chance to do some writing for the magazine as well. And that wasn't something that came with a job role. That was just me, you know, asking for more opportunities to be able to learn from the role. And I think, you know, that goes without saying that any role that that you're in, it doesn't mean that it's rigid. You have to stay doing what that role tells you to do in the job description. If you see opportunities within a role to cross over into another role, you know, I would always say to people, do it, ask. You know, the worst that you can get back is no.
But you know, a lot of people have the perception of if you end up doing more than what your job description says. I employ a lot of people, so this is a question that I get asked a lot. I feel that that's in there. They don't directly ask it, but it is something that they always wonder. And it would be good to get a bit more clarification for somebody like yourself with a lot of experience.
Sure.
Is the fact that a lot of people believe that once they start doing bits that are not in their job descriptions, they end up doing a lot more work and roughly get paid the same amount. Is that, how would you define it? Like what's your opinion on it?
I think that's an interesting question, Hamza, because I think at the moment in the kind of the world we're living in, the climate that we're in, I think a lot of people are finding that they're wearing 17 hats within their same job role, still getting paid the same amount, but having twice as much workload. And that, unfortunately, is because I think a lot of companies and industries are struggling at the moment. They're having to make redundancies, let people go. And those people that remain are doing the jobs of the people that have been let go. And that is unfair. I do think that's unfair. But I think, you know, going back to what I was saying before, I think if you want to do extra work and you're willing to take that extra work on for the experience, essentially in the meantime, I think there's nothing wrong in that, because actually showcasing yourself and your abilities within your job role is fantastic because, because it means that you can, you know, try new things, find out whether or not something different is for you, and also show your employer that you're capable of doing other things, because, you know, that's the way that you get promoted, isn't it? That's the way you diversify.
I have a bit of a similar opinion myself as well, especially for youngsters. Like what I personally believe is the fact that you are at a job and you get the opportunity to do a few extra bits that actually add up to your own skills, they should be done, and that opportunity should be taken, rather than thinking, oh yeah, imagine if I do 2 extra things, I'll get paid the same. Okay, you might get paid the same for the next couple of months or couple of weeks or even couple of years, but the skills that you learn, you will be able to utilize them. Would that be in your next role, or would that be in your own business as well?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting, actually. So moving forward to RSVIP. So let's start with the name. Why RSVIP?
Yeah, so I get asked this quite a bit. Some people guess why and some people aren't sure. I think if you're not familiar with RSVP as the French way of, you know, RSVPing, so actually responding to an invitation, an event invitation, which stands for Répondez plus s'il vous plaît, then you wouldn't know what it means. So RSVP, when you RSVP to an invitation, I kind of made it as a play on words and added the little I in. So if you see our logo, you'll see that it's spelled RSVIP in capitals, but the I is small. And that was really at the time, because when I launched RSVIP in 2008, it was very different to what it is now. It was a different animal completely. It has diversified and it has grown and evolved over the years into what it is now. In the beginning, it was kind of pitched as more of a lifestyle club. It's always been a members club. We started it off as a privilege card, so a bit like if you like, an exclusive student card, which gives you lots of discounts in lots of different places across the East Midlands, mainly Nottinghamshire, and also access to some nice events in Nottinghamshire as well. So that's where the RSVP came in connection with the events. And the VIP section obviously makes it feel a bit more kind of exclusive and upmarket. So that was kind of the feel that we were going for originally. And then the name just stuck, and it became one of those names where a lot of people were saying it, easy to remember, quite catchy, and fast forward 17 years now, a lot of people in the East Midlands have heard of RSVIP. When you say, have you heard of it? They say, oh yeah, I've heard of that. They might not 100% know what it is, but they've heard of it. And in actual fact, it is gold dust in marketing, because what's happened now, and I've noticed over the years, is I receive invitations from other people who invite me to their events, and they mistakenly ask you to RSVIP instead of RSVP. So they've actually saying my business name and promoting my business name unknowingly without doing it. In fact, I received an invitation this week from somebody that's quite high profile to their event, and they'd done the same thing. That's good. I just giggle. I don't tell them, I don't correct them, I just giggle to myself and let them get on with it.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah,
quite interesting as well. Yeah, that's well thought on that name. So how did it start? So back in 2007 did you start, did you say?
Yeah, 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
So what was the business looking like initially? How did you start? How big was your team?
Yeah, so it was just me. So it's always been just me. Not interested in working with anybody else in terms of employment. My model that I came into this business with was always, I want to work on my own, and I'll subcontract the work out to the people that I need help with. I always feel that it's important to play on your strengths and work on developing your strengths, and anything that's not your strength, delegate and hand it out to other people. And I've always kind of had that kind of outlook with my business. Still to this day I work in that way. So in the beginning, when I launched my business, I decided, sorry, what was the question?
So how big was the team? You already answered, it was just yourself. So how did you manage to, obviously, as an entrepreneur, as a head of the business, you will wear all sorts of hats, from social media manager to business developer and so on and on.
The hats,
how did you manage them, and how did you actually start and got your first customer, I would say?
Sure. I think you do wear 17 hats, don't you, when you're self-employed and you're starting out. Definitely. In the beginning, and I still do now, as I say. I think I loved it right from the start, because I'm a pretty organised, efficient, productive person naturally anyway. I tend to compartmentalise things, so I know where I'm at, what I need to do next, that kind of thing. And that's a very satisfying way of working for me. I think I'm like that in my life in general anyway, so I just implemented that kind of strategy into my business and the way that I run it. And it's kind of worked well up until this point, so I'll just carry on with it. But like I said, I think, I would always say to people, you can't do everything, and you must always learn to let go when you need to, and delegate and pass work out to other people who specialise in those things. So I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant. The finance side of things, I know my numbers. It's important to know your numbers, but equally I don't want to spend half of my life doing my books and that kind of thing. So for me, it's about the business development. So I work on that. I do the marketing myself. I do the hands-on stuff from day to day with myself of the business, and I obviously want to be present in the business, and I am the face of RSVIP. Exactly. So when people think of my brand, they think of me, and that's important to me, because I don't want to become a faceless kind of corporate enterprise, which a lot of businesses end up being. Yes, they're successful. That's not me. I'm a smaller business. And people buy into what I do and sell in my brand because usually, they identify or connect with me in some way, and that's important to me. Hence why I've never missed an event of my own in 17 years.
Wow, amazing.
Even when I've been really poorly, I've turned up.
That's great, actually. And very different, to be fair. Like, a lot of individuals that I had on my podcast, and as well as my business circle of individuals that I know, everybody tends to, including myself, by the way, everybody tends to just delegate and move into the next role and move into the next role and so on. But I guess everybody has different priorities, and everybody has a different vision of where they want to take their business. And with yourself, you always wanted yourself to be the face of the business, and yourself as a business itself. But what do you think about the next generation? For example, if somebody else happened to take over after yourself on this business, how would that work out? Would that be possible, or would the business be something that you just want to have it till you can run it and then kind of close it off?
No, I think I've definitely built my business as a model where I could pass it on and sell it on if I wanted to. What I've just said there with me being involved is kind of my choice and an option, but it's not necessarily a need and must. So the model is quite a clever model in terms of how I've built it. We've got a good, strong database behind it now. We've got the model is set up so that people pay probably around 50% of our clientele and our members of our network at RSVIP pay by subscription. So there's a real nice subsidised income there coming in. But then there's also 50% that we invoice out that pay annually. So great for cash flow if you're a small business as well. So the way it's set up is nice. We've got very low overhead. So, you know, I've been in profit with this business from day one. You know, a lot of it's based around sponsorship and support and collaboration, which is very important to me. Collaboration is key for sure.
Definitely.
So we work with a lot of people in Nottingham to help showcase their venues through our events. So a lot of it is on a kind of a mutually beneficial agreement in terms of our events and how that works. And I am proud of that setup because that's something that I created from the start, which no one else was doing at the time. I think people that were running events at the time kind of automatically thought, right, I want to run an event. I'll find out how much it's going to cost from the venue. I'll deduct my expenses from the ticket price, and that's my profit margin per person. And that's great because I do that as well. But I decided that there wasn't, to monetize my business in the way it needed to be done, it wasn't going to work that way and be beneficial for me in the long run. And it's that case of work smarter, not harder, isn't it? How to figure out how you can maximize everything. And so I figured out how this business model would work for me to my advantage, and also would allow me to grow in a way that I wanted to grow and have longevity and give the quality of service that I'd want to give to my members and to my clients, so that I could make sure that we have great venues and that make sure that they have a professional service from me, and that kind of thing. And so yeah, it all kind of fell into place, and that's the way that I work now, and I believe that's the way some other people now work, having caught on to the idea.
I bet they have. It's quite clever actually. It doesn't only help you, but also helps the local businesses kind of actually expose their business, especially if they're a new venue that nobody has heard of. And of course, having 50 to 100 members coming into that venue, they might come back again into that venue, which is just on their own as well. So it is beneficial, and it helps local businesses promote their products as well, which is really good, especially in Nottingham. We kind of need it.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, really good. So moving forward to communication itself, because obviously you do this for a living, and you understand communication itself a lot more and understand in a very different way than I guess an average person would understand it. What would you say are the key elements in terms of communication that someone should be working on to improve their communications?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide question, but I think if we kind of make it a little bit smaller and look at kind of communicating within, say, let's say the business world and networking, I mean, number one, I find that a lot of people struggle. You know, there's a lot of people that struggle with communication. It doesn't come natural to everyone. That's why they call it the art of conversation, for a reason, because it is actually an art and it doesn't come natural to everybody. And I think, you know, there's a very large percentage of people out there that actually, number one, hate networking events for that reason, because they find them unnatural, you know, uncomfortable. They'll experience all the negatives, like the anxiety before they turn up, the social anxiety when they walk in, the awkwardness, all of that. And I think, you know, that's where I saw a gap for launching what I do, which is to help people with not only their communication skills but their networking skills, and what to do when you get there, how to maximise opportunities when you're at a networking event, how to use the opportunities to your advantage, and how to converse, really, which, you know, you think most people naturally would assume that everybody can do it, but they can't.
Do you think it's more like a new generation thing that they're struggling with the conversations because they haven't had that many interactions in terms of face-to-face, or is it an overall generic thing in human beings?
I think it's an overall generic thing, but I've certainly noticed a difference since COVID, you know, since the pandemic, with the lockdown, with a lot of young people missing out on the best part of their years, of being able to get out there and about there with their education, whether they've been at school, university, college, interacting with people and their friends, actually having, you know, I work with the university quite closely, and a lot of the studies and the seminars were being done online, so they weren't interacting with their fellow peers. People in work, you know, not being at work and remote working from home, getting so used and institutionalised to that sort of way of working. So there's been a lot of changes, as we all know. We've all been through it, a lot of pivoting, a lot of adapting. And I think that for some people has made their communication skills very limited, and they've not had that time. They've lost the best part of 2-3 years or more in the pivotal times of their, lives when they're young, to actually be able to gain confidence as well. And I think it's the confidence levels that they've lost, really, a lot of them, that I've noticed in universities and that kind of thing. And again, that's where I come in, because I run workshops, fun interactive workshops for these young people, and I kind of take them out of their comfort zone a little bit to get them practicing, conversing with one another, working the room, utilising new tools and techniques of how to network, really. And it's really rewarding for me to see that, because they always end the sessions with laughter and smiles, and you can see a real difference from the start of the sessions to the finish of the sessions, and how they've even just come on within a couple of hours. So yeah, I think interaction.
What are your sessions like? What is it exactly that you do? Well, not exactly, but roughly what do you do in these sessions?
Yeah.
Is it more like conversational groups that you do, or what is it?
No, it's less conversation, it's more doing. So my sessions are very practical. I usually run, as a rule, a 2-hour workshop, which is my most popular one, which is called Work the Room Like a Pro. And so what that is really that brings the people in the session together to be able to learn from me and my experiences. I share all the tools and techniques that I've learned over the 20 years of me networking in my industry. And it's literally, for example, it might be things like, we'll cover creative conversation, so how to make a conversation more interesting. Instead of going around in a circle all the time, it actually gets somewhere. The art of small talk, whether it's needed, looking at storytelling and making, encouraging people to share their stories and be open, because after all, it's really important for you to get to know the person behind the brand, not just talking shop all the time. And I actually discourage people at networking events to talk about business too much. It's more important to get to know the person behind that business, because they're the people essentially that you're going to end up doing business with. And you're not going to do business with someone that you don't like or connect with. So I think that's very important. We look at pitching, because obviously some networking events require you to stand up and pitch, or pitch about yourself. So we create our own pitch, and I help people to deliver that as well. So we talk about, a lot of it's presentation skills as well, and how to articulate your value, so.
Amazing. So when you say pitching, is it more like they would go onto the stage and pitch their service to the audience there, or is it more like a one-to-one where they would have that, I don't know, for example, a board meeting where they would go and pitch the service through the presentations?
It could be either, actually, Hamza. It could be anything, because again, it's transferable skills. So once someone's got those techniques and tools in their back pocket to pull out, they can pull those out at any scenario, whether it's a job interview, a networking event, a presentation, or a pitch to a client in a company, on stage, like you say.
What's your opinion on, assumably somebody goes through intensive courses of, improving their small talks or improving their presentation skills? Personally, I think sometimes when you have too much knowledge, or when you start doing things that are not natural to yourself, especially during a presentation, that can kind of be counterproductive. What are your thoughts on that?
In terms of planning to over-planning, you mean?
Yeah, it's like, for example, like, somebody heard about it, or in a presentation, you should point a certain way, in a certain way. And that's not natural for that individual to do that action. And because he has that knowledge and he wants to make it perfect, they over-plan it, and they go over the board of over-presenting in a way.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that? How do you think individuals can tackle that?
I think it's finding a nice balance, really, and I think it's down to the individual, as you quite rightly say. Everybody's got different personalities, so some people will really excel at pre-planning, and they'll want to plan, rehearse until it to death, and that's the way that they work, and they're comfortable with that. And I think you have to kind of find your comfort spot. So if that's you, and you know that that's going to help you, but you can still convey what you've got to say in a natural way, even though you've rehearsed it a million times, do it. But also there are people that find rehearsing and pre-planning actually a disadvantage, because then they'll get really overthinking it, and then when they actually comes to deliver it, they get in a mess, because they've got too much going on. They've written too many notes. They don't know where to start. So I would always say bullet points for your notes. I would always say make sure that, you know exactly what you're going to say, but you don't need to necessarily know how you're going to say it in advance. I think always lean in on your own personality and the way that you say things, and treat things like a bit of a conversation, because that way then you're going to come across as more natural. You're not everybody's a newsreader or a journalist and knows how to do these things, right? So I think we have to kind of lean into our own personalities a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. Really interesting point of view, and I think I agree. I completely agree with that, and
Good.
it's quite cool. So, regarding the art of networking, if you happen to give only three, I know it's quite complicated. There's a lot more to it behind it, and everybody needs to go through a different bit. But if you happen to give three tips of somebody that goes to a networking event, what would be these three summary tips that you would give them to?
Okay, so tip number one would be when you walk into a room at a networking event, I would always say to find your base point. And a lot of people might not know what that is because I think I might have made it up at some point a few years ago. But your base point is basically your safe space. So this is where you would walk into a room and you would kind of use your peripheral vision very quickly to kind of analyze the space, figure it out for yourself, figure out where you're going to start, where you're going to stand. And often with networking events, especially these days, they're quite social. So a lot of people are usually standing. You might find it's quite loud, overbearing, a bit overstimulating for some people. So I would say to start in a quiet corner and maybe go and use your base as a quiet corner, or find your base point being a pillar in the room or something with a bar table at it, so that every time you're networking and working the room, you can go back to base. So that's tip number one. Just to have a breather. We all need a breather. Tip number two would be, I often get asked, how do you exit a conversation when you're getting stuck with somebody for too long, which often people are too polite to do. And I would always say remain professional, remain polite, obviously. But I think the most common ones I come across from people are things like, oh, I just, would you excuse me? I just need to use the toilet, or I'm just going to go to the bar. If you use those excuses, that's perfectly fine, but just make sure you do, because that person might be watching you.
I can imagine that.
Exactly, but actually a really nice one would be almost reverse psychology. So it would be something like, it's been really great to speak to you, Hamza, but I won't take up any more of your time. There's a lot of people I'm sure you want to speak to, but it was really good to meet you. Shake hands, exit. Because what you really mean is that you don't want them to take up any more of your time. You want to work the room like a pro, maximise opportunities and keep going. But sometimes you can't get a word in, when you're talking. It's finding that pause. So at some point when you find that moment to be able to say that, reverse it. I won't take up any more of your time. That's tip number two.
That's quite good.
Number three, I think number three would be, there's so many I could choose. Which one would number three be? I think a huddle. So again, I call them huddles. So when you walk into a room, so let's say now we've walked into a room and you've established your base point. Next thing is to actually go into the lion's den of the busy room. Where do you start? There's a lot of established conversations with groups of people talking, and often that can be really overwhelming for people to actually, how do I enter that group? You can't run around singing and dancing, attracting attention to yourself. But what I would say is, hover around the edge of a group, a smaller group, make eye contact if you're able to and comfortable to do so with one person in that group. Smile, because smile is the universal language, everybody understands a smile. And then once you've kind of made that connection with one person in the group, their body language will naturally open up to allow you into that group. They might not realise they're doing it, but it will happen subconsciously. You're in then you can introduce yourself to that person, they'll introduce you hopefully to the rest of the group, and you're in. Tip number three.
That's really cool, actually. Never thought of the third one. It's always awkward to jump into that group that is already having that conversation.
It can be, yeah, definitely.
It could be really easy, as one would say, once you get enough practice in, I guess.
Absolutely.
So, in terms of networking events itself, what are, like, obviously you run them, you have done multiples of these networking events. A question that I always had is, do you believe, of course, they are beneficial in terms of socializing and in terms of making somewhat of a network with them. But do you believe a business owner that is doing quite well on their own would take out the time to go to these networking events? And if yes, why would they do it?
Yeah, that is a really good question, because I think a lot of people think that if I'm already doing well and I don't need any more clients, why would I need to waste my time going networking? But I would always say go networking anyway, because networking isn't just about collecting business. It isn't just about creating new clients. You can get so much more from networking. Number one, if you work on your own a lot, it's nice to get out and meet people and interact with other humans, because it's healthy to do so. Number two, you can learn from other people just through conversation and stories. You know, if they're telling you what they've been up to, case studies, stories, you're learning from other people. And if there's something that you're stuck on that you're working at currently, that you might want to just do a bit of casual market research, networking is a great way of doing that, because you can go and you work the room, ask questions, learn from people. What would they do? How do they think about this? Also, networking is great for peer support. Excuse me. So it would be that, you know, you might actually not be going to collect business and to make new business and generate new business in networking events, which most people are, by the way, there to do, whether it's natural or not. But actually, talking to people in your own industry is quite useful as well. Meeting people that do similar things to you, learning and learning about what they do and how they do it. Talking about, you know, the latest trends and industry news and that kind of thing is useful for people as well, because it's good to know what is out there, what's happening at the moment with people that are doing the same sorts of things as you. And then also, lastly, I would say as well, it is about generating business. You know, a lot of people, whether they admit it or not, are going to networking because they need to get more business. And networking is what I say, it's the new cold calling. Networking is, you know, in recent years it's blown up in the last 5 years, and every other person is networking. And I think if you're not networking, your competitor certainly is, or staff of your competitors are. So even if you haven't got time to do it, you know, dip in and out if you can. You don't have to do it regularly. Or if you've got someone that works for you that you can kind of give them that job role of doing it, I would definitely say to do so.
Interesting, very interesting perspective. It clears
Yeah.
a lot of the questions there.
Yeah.
So moving fast forward to 2025 now, and obviously with the age of AI, as we're going through it, and a lot happening in the AI space, and a lot of things getting automated and so on.
Yeah.
How are you finding, obviously you interact with a lot of businesses, how are you finding the businesses, how are these guys reacting to this AI change and the whole industrial change?
I mean, yeah, again, it's kind of a big question because we have a lot of members in different industries, and I don't always speak to them about that particular topic. I'm a bit of a tech phobe myself, but I realise that I need to jump on board with this. You know, we've dipped in and out with RSVIP with trialing different things over the years that people have come to us to. I do have an open mind on it. I think, generally speaking, when I've spoken to people, listening out there as to what people's thoughts are on it, some people are really embracing it within kind of my clientele, but usually those people are the people that are already in that kind of industry anyway, so they find it really interesting. Whereas there are other people in certain industries that are absolutely terrified by AI. I would say I fall somewhere in the middle.
So you're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Where do you think the AI can, well, essentially is genuinely revolutionizing the tech world as we know it, and a lot of the things that needed an individual to perform, would that be, I don't know, maybe managing your emails, would that be even social media posts? I think through agentic AI, agents genuinely just create the post for you and post as well as reply to the comments and messages and so on. My own customers in the pharmaceutical industry, they don't go through the whole consultations with the patients anymore. They get the summary that's done by an AI actually.
Wow.
To save the time. So well, I can kind of imagine in the next 5 years, pretty much as we had in the Industrial Revolution back in 19 something, and we would pretty much be in the similar situation now with an AI as well.
Yeah.
And how would you think that the AI would impact the networking? Because I've seen a lot of people nowadays just going on ChatGPT and asking all sorts of questions, and pretty much even when they wanna, I don't know, maybe do a market research or maybe have that conversation with someone, they always ask those questions about either those individuals, if they are known on the online world, or about that specific research that they are doing to an AI and get an answer in return.
Yeah, I think with AI, there's definitely it's happening whether we like it or not. We're in the digital age, and we've got to embrace it. Some people are embracing it quicker than others. You know, I think from my perspective, with the infrastructure of my business, years ago, I learned that automating certain systems is the way to go, especially being a small business owner. So for me, it's been gold dust in being able to automate certain things. I had a new bespoke website built by someone fantastic in Nottingham. And that bespoke website, for example, collects people's bookings for our events. It automatically sends out confirmation notes, and you've got things like sales funnels, which are really useful as well. So I'm all for all of that, and that's been really great for my business. It saved me a lot of time. It's made it more efficient to run. And I'm always looking at new ways. I use a CRM system for all my communications, so that's great as well. Digital marketing, I'm all on board with. I think when it comes to networking, though, I think I'm seeing different things popping up about,
Virtual networking and all
yes,
that. There was quite a few that I come
online.
across as well online. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I did online networking for a whole year in lockdown 2020, and we had to do it differently. We had to do it online. Everyone got on Zoom, didn't they, and learned how to do that. Still on board with that. I think that's fantastic, because that made RSVIP global. So we had people from all over the world coming to our events online, which wouldn't have been possible before lockdown. So again, positive from that perspective. But I think when it comes to networking, nothing beats face-to-face networking. Nothing beats human face-to-face interaction when you are, like you and I, in the same room together. You can't beat that.
Definitely.
And I think that's why I feel confident that what I do in my industry will remain. And then I'm not worried that it's going to get taken over by AI and robots, that aspect of it. I think there'll be elements of networking, and there'll be software and things like that which will accompany it and help to enhance certain aspects of networking, which is already happening. I'm seeing things already happening like that. But I don't think that anything will take over face-to-face events. People need to get out the house. People want to interact with people.
With the recent interview that Zuckerberg done as well, he talked about the metaverse and how people would not really want to go out and just have those massive VRs and just be in these virtual worlds and try to network to that one. I still believe I'm still on page with you on that. Like that human interaction, that face-to-face, I don't think for certain, at least for our generation, he would not beat him. Who knows about the next one?
I know, that's quite worrying, isn't it? I really hope that never happens after our generation. When I'm gone, long gone, I hope that we don't live in a world where everybody is too scared to go in the same room with each other, or just doesn't want to anymore, and everybody's networking online. I hope it doesn't happen like that. Quite happy to have a hybrid of it, but not fully 100%.
Not fully, yeah. I can obviously, there's a lot of cons to it and pros, to be fair, but with where we headed as individuals and as a human race, everybody has become too lazy to do pretty much anything with these delivery apps to begin with, and then everything else that goes around it. And obviously during COVID, everybody started to work from home, to having that human interaction or getting ready to go out or being excited to see someone is slowly, I wouldn't say dying down, but it's slowly becoming less popular than what it was back in at least about 5-10 years ago when I first got here.
I agree.
Cool, interesting. So, Fiona, one last bit that I ask all of my guests. There's a lot more that, to be honest, I could cover with yourself, but we will be here for another
Such an interesting topic, isn't it? People.
It is people, no doubt, and especially communication. Honestly, I actually enjoy, and a lot to learn from it as well.
Absolutely.
But one question that I do ask to all of my guests is, if there was one piece of advice, life advice, that you could give it to your younger self, or to somebody who is listening, or to somebody who's getting into the business, what would that be?
Honestly, I think it relates to mental health more than anything. I think it's don't sweat the small stuff. Don't overthink every little thing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because when I first started out, I felt like I had to be perfect at everything, know everything, come across as this super experienced professional, when actually it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to admit that actually you're new in business, you don't know everything, and you're learning as we go. I'm still learning now, 17 years down the line of being self-employed, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that. I think when you walk into a situation with an open mind and say to somebody, you know what, teach me something new. And that's why I like to hang around in circles with people that are smarter than me. I like to go to events where people are more successful than me, because not only is it inspiring and aspirational, you're learning from people all the time, but I also find it inspiring being able to be that person that people can learn from as well. So yeah, I think just if I could say that to myself, my younger self, and say, don't worry, you haven't got to know it all right now. You haven't got to have it all figured out. then I think that would take a lot of the pressure off me.
Yeah, that's such a nice advice as well, and
Yeah.
exactly on the same page with you. Whenever I started my business as well, I genuinely didn't know most of the stuff that, of course, I know now, and you are not supposed to know everything when you start.
No.
One more question that this leads me to, though, is where do you see your business in, let's just say, next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah.
What are your ambitions?
Do you know what? I used to have all these massive 5-10 year plans before lockdown, and I think a lot changed in perspective. And now I really take every year as it comes. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I have plans, and every year I like to implement and launch something new, which I do. Last year I launched a brand new event, which was something that I'd been looking forward to doing for a few years pre-lockdown. I got round to doing it, and it's turned out to be a great success. So every year I come into, what I do is towards the end of each year I reflect. And then I start to think, what do I want to do next year? So I have this timeline for me, really, where towards the end of this year, I'll know I'll do the same. I'll come into the new year in January and I'll get cracking on the next new thing. But for me, if you ask me what long term I'd like to do in the next few years, I see myself with the business that I'm currently doing now, just doing more of the training side of things. You know, the training side of things for me is very much a passion. RSVIP's, been running for a long time. It's something that's always done pretty well. And I'm confident that hopefully it'll still carry on doing well as it's going. But I think for me on the training side, I just want to build upon what I've created, do more corporate training, work with more universities across the UK. So it's building upon what I'm already doing, because I'm already doing what I want to do. But also I'd like to do more online stuff as well. So I'd like to take my training online. And actually offer a virtual service for training so I can reach more people wider. In lockdown I built a virtual training hub myself, and so again I'd kind of quite like to build upon that and expand that. So that would look in the form of things like videos and that kind of thing, where it could be something where people can download stuff, watch stuff, learn from me without actually me having to be there. So that actually relates to what we were just saying at before,
Exactly.
doesn't it? Really
Moving around that side, yeah.
Moving around.
And that's actually quite good, though. The thing is, like, we are a global. There's no such thing as UK or another country anymore. It's more like a global bay, and everybody wants to learn.
Yeah.
And the best way to learn is from maybe a completely different culture and maybe a completely different environment than where you currently are.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really an interesting vision, and best of luck on that. And it was honestly a pleasure for you to come down on this podcast.
Pleasure.
Thanks once again for coming, and thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all on the next one.